Yeah, Kiloby Inquires, basically emotional repression inquiry. I mean, that's what we're here to do. So it's a transformational approach to emotional freedom, basically, and discover how to uncover and release the hidden emotional pattern that keep you stuck, and learn a body-based method that works beyond belief systems and stories. And you see why emotional repression is the root of so much suffering and how to free yourself from that when you do this work. And why this matters now, because most people are unknowingly living under the weight of repressed emotions. It's so hard to spot it sometimes, because we don't know anything else. It can feel like a personality, or when we're talking about emotions, I just don't get angry, or I just don't get sad, that kind of thing. These hidden feelings drive thoughts, behaviors, and even physical symptoms. I will get to that in a minute. And without addressing them, no amount of positive thinking, spiritual practice, or willpower creates lasting change. So just a bit about myself. I'm a non-dual embodiment teacher, guide, whatever you want to call it. And yeah, I'm also a co-developer of KI Emotional Repression Inquiry, and I bring extensive experience working with thousands of sessions with other people and clients, exploring emotional repression, basically. And I've seen firsthand how fear of emotions keep people looping in pain and coping mechanisms. Through the work, I've watched people dissolve lifelong suffering and reconnect with their authentic selves. This approach works without requiring you to adopt new beliefs or force yourself to be positive, I could say. So the root of suffering is emotional repression. That's the basis that we're working on. And you don't have to believe me. We might have to have a little faith in us, really, but when you really get to kind of experience this through inquiry, so that you don't really have to believe anything, because believing is a way to avoid feeling, or identifying with the thoughts is to avoid feeling something, right? And that's where we need to get to. So many unconscious programs were formed in childhood from trauma and unmet needs. And depression is the mind's protection against feeling and expressing emotions. Body keeps the score. These emotions don't disappear. They're living in the body as tension, pain, or numbness. So even if you haven't, if you managed to not feel them or express them, it hasn't really gone anywhere. And nowadays, as the science proves, that it's stored in the bodies and as contractions, and it can manifest in many different ways, in many different symptoms. So this is like the iceberg model, and some of you are familiar with this already from different modalities or whatever, but this is really helpful. So above the water is behaviors, coping mechanisms, strategies, and beliefs. And I could do a whole meeting just on this, but it's just to simplify so people can visualize what we're doing. So below the water is where the buried emotions are and fears of it, and unmet needs, the safety for love, which is driven by the fear. So KI helps you gently go below the waterline where true change happens. So just to kind of briefly touch some of the things that's in the iceberg here is where, so above it says resources, pleasure, entry points, and victimhood. So, and then the opposite of that, what's beneath that is drivers, pain, the net, and responsibility. I just explained that briefly. Don't worry if you don't understand them, because it's really you have to know the skill, the context of what we actually do technically and stuff like that. But as a context is just as important as basically tools and skills here. Well, that brings on the skill. So when I say resources above the water, that's what we need to cope from not being able to feel emotions, or to what we have to do. And underneath, the opposite of that is the drivers. These drives what's above it, basically. So we need these resources to be able to cope, or to be okay with that. And that's the safety. That's what we get safety out of. But it's only a temporary thing. And this is where the pleasure and pain cycle with the second line comes in. So you might get temporary pleasure by believing thoughts, or having a glass of wine to all spiritual teaching, all those things, stories, addiction, shame, fear, even some of the negative things that it feels like you're suffering, but it's what's really the real suffering I found is not knowing that's running. I have to actually believe that I'm a failure, so I don't have to feel my emotions, which is underneath the iceberg. And above the water can be entry points as well. So when you're doing the work, all these things above the water, whether it's your identities, the stories, or shame, or unmet needs, all those things are what we call entry points. So we use that to come into our bodies, which is below the water, basically, because that's where they're stored, and that's where the emotional repressions are, which is called the network of emotional repressions. So I've also put victimhood and responsibility there. So as long as we're only conscious of the above the water, we are victim of those things. We are gonna be the victim of our beliefs. What we believe in, what we identify with, and that can be a separate self or whatever. If you want to talk about non-dual stuff, but when you come underneath it to really see what's happening unconsciously, you start to take responsibility, or meaning, the responsibility is the case. There's no separate self to take responsibility. If you start to see things for what they really are, which are thoughts, sensations, and feelings. I can explain more about that, but that's the iceberg stuff. So what you're doing is you're going up below the water to find what drives your suffering, basically. You could say the suffering is at the top. Even the good things, or even what you think is good, but it only gives you pleasure temporarily, right? So we have to keep chasing it every time. And why is that? Why do we have to feel good all the time, or be right, or whatever, or be wrong for some people, because we don't want to feel something, right? So that's what I mean by resources, pleasure, entry points, and victimhood. So yeah. So signs you might be repressing emotions. Also chronic self-beliefs like I'm not good enough, I'm unlovable, I'm a failure, I'm good, I'm bad, all those things. Emotional numbness or overreactions. So you might feel certain emotions more than others, or you might not feel any of them at all, or you might overreact, overspill, anger might be too uncontrollable, or whatever, the sadness or the fear, all those things. Reliance on coping substances, distractions, and overachievement. So a lot of strong coping mechanism, really. They're just, that's what we're really doing, really, because we really don't want to feel something, so we rather use different methods, which is at needs, basically. Physical symptoms like chronic tensions, depression, addiction, illness. So those can arise too, because everything's kept in, all that fear and the emotion hasn't gone anywhere. It's kept in the body and it hasn't really gone anywhere. And it has to, the more it contracts, in my experience, that it will start to manifest almost physically, or subtle body, all that stuff too. So yeah. So what makes this work different? It works beyond belief systems. No mental reprogramming is required. So maybe you might heard Dan McClintock talk about this as well. What we do is deprogramming, not reprogramming. We're not asking you to reprogram anything that you believed in, because they're not wrong or right, or what happened to you is not right or wrong. It feels like that, but we're not gonna ask you to believe in this, because this is what we believe in, so much better than what you believe in. We're not trying to reprogram your belief system or thoughts or ideas about anything. That will come naturally when you start to deprogram, and when you start to be here in presence more, to move as who you really are. Because when you're in belief system, as you know, you're in your mind, which is really never here. You're in your future or the past or whatever else you want to be, rather than here, really. And it makes a difference, because makes the unconscious conscious through direct inquiries and body awareness. So what we do is we really keep the mind out, really, as much as we can, because the mind, you just can't help to keep us safe from emotions, right? So yes, the mind is involved, but we really need to, once we're in the body, we have to stay in the body, in awareness of the body, because that's where all the information and what we believe is down there. But we don't completely disregard the mind, because mind will start to align, and it integrates the mind and body for deep and lasting freedom. Yes.
Can't keep up with
So how it works is So we ask the body, as I said, and notice sensation contractions. So that's how we kind of get deeper into unconscious, basically, rather than having a conversation with our mind, because we could do that forever, and we, it feels like you're getting somewhere, and we get again temporary pleasures, because when we believe something to be something, there's some benefits there, right? But that can't be sustained because it's just a thought, and yeah. So, and it keeps the mind out, avoid overanalyzing, see things as they are, thoughts as thoughts, sensations as sensations. So this is comes back to what I was saying about when your presence, when you're fully here right now as presence, or what you want in awareness or as consciousness, when you just check any moment, there's only thoughts, sensations, and images really. But because we believe them, we identify them, that gets mixed into stories, so we can identify, we make something out of it. Then we're not really here anymore. So we start to see things what they really are, and that's what the work is. That's what I mean by we're not asking you to believe anything. If anything, deprogram that, so you can see thoughts as thoughts. Even thoughts like I'm a failure, I'm not good enough, I can't do this, they will feel really true because it has a lot of charge to it. But there's the sensations of that, and there's thoughts of that, and there might be images attached to, or feelings attached to that. When we see it for what those things are, what they really are, it cannot stay in awareness. It has to move through, right? That's the principle. And follow the body's lead, allow natural emotional release. Yes. So again, we don't have to do the releasing of the emotion. As soon as you acknowledge the fear of the emotion, and when the emotions arise, it's emotion just will be felt naturally from awareness, and it moves. No one really has to try to feel anything, right? If you can just allow it to be here, it's gonna be here, and you feel sad, you feel angry, and that's gonna move through the way it needs to. Why this isn't always easy, and that's okay. So this, so maybe the work sounds easy and simple in some ways for some people, but we're up against ourselves. Like, I am up against Toshi, because what I built is to not feel something. And what is that thing that I don't want to feel? It's one of my emotions, and that was anger for me mainly. So facing repressed emotions can feel unsafe to the conditioning. You literally feel that fear, but doing this consciously, you can really stay with it, really. And that's what we always face with. It feels like someone says something bad to me, I'm worried about work tomorrow, but you're worried about what you have to feel when you go to work tomorrow, right? So, but you're you're working with that. So, you feel some sort of resistance to it, and that's natural. But you can, we have tools to specifically work with those things. The mind will resist with doubt, judgment, distraction. You're up against me. Yeah, I've kind of said this actually. So yeah, you're up against yourself. And myself meaning the mind, you could say the separate self, the ego that wants to protect you, because so it's not an enemy or anything. It's a real innocent movement. With guidance and tools, the process becomes safe and empowering. So yeah, that's what we're doing. And then you have your mentors. If you're gonna do mentorship, they've been down that road already, so they can actually explain the patterns that people go through, and they can help you, because it can be really difficult to do this at the deep level on your own. You need some sort of guidance a little bit, because you're up against yourself, and it's so your mind knows exactly how to get your attention, to take you out, to convince you this is the case or this is not the case. And it's so easy because we're so used to just having a conversation to solve things. There's nothing wrong with that, but doing this work is to acknowledge that and be conscious from that. Yeah, so 3 key principles of non-dual embodiment. So this is, it goes into the whole conversation of the whole non-dual embodiment if you're interested, and that's why I teach more of it, and KI is one of the big parts of it, to really clear the conditioning we have in our body, so that consciousness can really move through to meet itself, I guess, to just simplify it. So there's 3 aspects of that. I won't go too much into that. So there's a awareness part that you have to be aware of, which is the work of just recognizing yourself as thoughts. So recognizing yourself as not thoughts, and all sensation, all these things. You are the awareness, and everything is arising in awareness and all that stuff. That's the important part. But through this work, you really get to see that, because you have to see your biggest belief as thoughts too, or you start to. Like, I will never be able to do this, or you did this to me, or I'm bad, I'm a failure, I'm unlovable. That will feel true, but that's a thought too, right? But you can't think your way into that. You have to kind of see that for what it is, which is thoughts and the sensation and the construction of that. So that's the awareness part. And the mind, the context part is the... So the more you do the work, the mind that wants to always help you, which is repressed, it will start to catch itself too. So it will get easier as you do the work, because you're not accumulating more knowledge. You're experiencing through inquiries and this embodiment work that you can actually catch yourself. The mind will start to catch itself, So that's, so we don't just leave out the mind part. And the body part is the actual practice itself, really, the somatic inquiry and everything else. And that's the main part of KI, is the body part and the embodiment part, basically. So the transformation possible with this work, I mean, there are many, and you don't really know what it really is until you do it. I can't explain that at the bottom, but live as your authentic self, free from unconscious conditioning. That's for sure. Feel and express emotions fully, return of creativity and potential. Yeah, that can happen. That will happen for most people. Experience lasting emotional regulation through connection, not suppression. So at the bottom I say, this work is not about pursuing certain situation, environments, or outcome. We don't know how we authentically move, and it will look like until it does. So we don't know until we start to move authentically, basically. And that's okay. Even, we have to start work somewhere wanting, I need relief from this pain. That's how I started care. I just couldn't stay with the pain and the depression that I felt. And that what, that's your goal, and that's okay. But when you really start to see why we do what we do and why we believe what we do, things becomes more open and more mysterious and more, more open. And you start to see that is the case already. So you might come here thinking, oh, I'm going to be healed, but then you'll be healed, but you really understand what healing means to you. What does healing mean to you? Because that's a broad term for many things, right? Yes, the pain of certain things might go away, but other parts of your life might unlock or different potential, because the creativity or the energy that you've been using, or energy that I was using to push my anger down, is freed up now. There's so much creativity and potentiality as myself can come through. So yeah, there's lots of fun to come through. And it's really about how we turn up to life, basically. Because I couldn't fully turn up to life because I was scared to fully be myself. Because if I'm fully being myself, I might have to be angry or be sad. And then I might have to express that. And that's really, really scary thing for a kid or baby, right? So that's, so when that starts to fall away, you don't really know. What you kind of do at the same time is like, oh, this is what I wanted to do all the time. You kind of know it, but you start to kind of move as that more. So that's that. Thank you for sticking with me. But there's a lot to cover there, right? I'm sure some of you have questions about different things I say, so I'm open to questions now. So, but I just want to say, it's really about making unconscious things conscious. That's all we can say. It's not about fixing anything. It can feel like that, but just being conscious of the fact that there's power of it that wants to fix something. So, okay, let's get to know why you need to fix those things, right? So that's because that's the real suffering, not knowing why you have to want to do things more and more. And then you just become here more. And every time you come back to your body is always in presence and right now. But it's easy to go to the mind, but we mustn't keep the mind out. We must establish the mind-body connection so we can fully allow thoughts as thoughts, sensations as sensations, images, stories as that. So you can see it for what it is. I make it sound easy because some of the thoughts can have a lot of charges and your body is going to react, and you might not want to even see certain thoughts like, I'm a failure, or I'm going to die, or I'm not good enough, or he's going to hurt me. You might not be able to even see your mom or dad, or, it's because your body is reacting. But at least you're there consciously seeing that image or thoughts, and you might not be able to do it, but that's a great start already. So because you start to notice what it is, so. But anyway, welcome.